Greetings. I've heard Donald Trump ascribed many character flaws: a lack of empathy, narcissism, a stubborn refusal to accept information that runs contrary to what he wants to be true, hubris, arrogance, being a con man, being a serial liar, treating women badly, being racist, many of which we've heard about from the people who have known him best. But one thing I seem not to hear him called is stupid. Oh, he's frequently said to be poorly informed or misinformed. Sure, but stupid? Somehow commentators seem widely to have missed that one, although it often seems to be implicit in what they do say. In March of 2016, when Donald Trump was running for the Republican nomination, he took part in a town hall with Chris Matthews. In that town hall, Trump said that we got out of Iraq the wrong way. How should we have gotten out? We should have taken the oil with us, he said. Almost instantly, I wondered how he thought we were to do that. Were we supposed to take a giant straw and suck the oil out of the ground? Come on. We had options. We could pull our troops completely out and hope that ISIS didn't grab control of the Iraqi oil fields. We could pull out some troops, but leave others to guard the Iraqi oil fields. We could pull out some troops while leaving others to train Iraqi troops in protecting the oil fields themselves, before eventually pulling out all of our troops. We could simply stay. Sure, we had options, but leaving and taking the oil with us wasn't one of them. This struck me as simply stupid. I once had an online discussion with a conservative in which I mentioned that. He thought that there must have been more to the story. He thought that I must have been leaving out important context that would explain Trump's meaning and make it perfectly reasonable. At first, I thought that I would have no way of demonstrating that I wasn't leaving out anything important, as I didn't think I'd be able to find a copy of Trump's words from that day. But lo and behold, I was able to use Google to find the transcript. Thank you, Google, and thank you, Internet. I don't remember my search words, probably something like Town Hall 2016, Chris Matthews, Donald Trump. The relevant exchange occurs about a third of the way through, if you want to look it up yourself. And no, there was no explanatory context. Trump said we got out of Iraq the wrong way. He said that we should have taken the oil with us. Chris Matthews pointed out that that would have required leaving some troops behind. On the ground, said Matthews. And Trump repeated himself, saying simply that we should have taken the oil with us. Nothing to clarify his intent, nothing to make his meaning seem reasonable. Matthews repeated that that would have required leaving some troops behind, on the ground, whereupon Trump switched off to another topic, never explaining how we were to have removed our troops while also taking the oil with us. I kept thinking of that giant straw stuck in the ground and of how stupid Trump seemed in not realizing that we couldn't both leave and take the oil with us without using the giant straw. At the time, I thought I'd hear political commentators talking about how stupid that was. As far as I know, they never did. I watched a fair amount of MSNBC campaign coverage, and I don't recall hearing anybody say it. Maybe I just missed it. The only way I've since thought of to make his remarks make sense is to suppose that he intended for the United States to take oil that had already been extracted from the ground with us. Of course, it's not as though the United States had any right to take even that oil. You don't get to invade a country and then steal its oil, not in this day and age. But at least that wouldn't have been stupid as much as it would have shown hubris, and a view that the United States was free to do anything it could do without worrying about the rights of other nations, which, frankly, would have seemed consistent with Trump's general character. Although he does seem more inclined toward buying and selling parts of countries than invading and taking what he wants. He has suggested buying a big swatch of Syria in November of 2015, and floated the idea of selling Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, according to former acting DHS Secretary Elaine Duke, and confirmed by former DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen's then Chief of Staff, Miles Taylor, and wanted to buy Greenland, canceling a trip to Denmark when the Danish made clear that Greenland was not for sale. But nothing in what Trump said made it seem that that was what he was talking about. It sure sounded as though he were talking about that giant straw. I will point out that one of the frustrating things about interpreting Trump is that, unlike a really intelligent person, he often doesn't make his meaning clear. Unlike a really intelligent person, he often speaks in half sentences, or in what his erstwhile attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, described as code. The idea was similar to how if a mob boss says, "We've got a problem with Eddie." Know what I mean? And then the next day, Eddie turns up dead. The mob boss never explicitly instructed anybody to kill Eddie. He can honestly say that he never told anybody to do any killing. He never used those words. Everybody around him knew exactly what he meant. Cohen describes Trump as talking in this kind of code, although I have no knowledge of his ever having ordered an execution with it. But intelligent people make clear their meanings, and they take care to distinguish what they do mean from what they don't mean, especially when someone seeks clarification. Trump does exactly the opposite. He often speaks in half sentences or in ways that it's easy to understand, but that leave him technically able to say, "I didn't say that," like the mob boss. I will note that his lack of specificity does on occasion help all of us. When he revealed to Bob Woodward, and thence to the Russians and the Chinese, the existence of a secret US nuclear program, the revelation was not of specific details, because Trump doesn't talk that way, but merely of the existence of a program, which could have intimidated the Russians and the Chinese without enabling them to know anything specific about it. He also said, in May of 2015, according to Vox.com, that he had a method of defeating them, ISIS that is, quickly and effectively and having total victory. And said in November of 2015, again, according to Vox.com, that he knew more about ISIS than the generals do. This, of course, implies that he thought that he knew better than the generals did how to defeat ISIS. It might take a little explanation to see why I think that that was stupid. Under the assumption that he really meant what he said and wasn't lying, something he does so habitually that it's hard to tell when he really means something stupid and when he is only making up a stupid lie. Not that making up a stupid lie reveals a very high degree of intelligence. I play chess. I'm a halfway decent player, but I'm not a master, let alone a grandmaster. If you showed 1,000 chess positions to both me and a grandmaster, some of the time, a lot of the time, I hope, the two of us would agree on the best move. But an annoyingly large number of times, I suspect, the two of us would disagree. And when we did, his move, the grandmaster's move, would be a better choice than mine, the overwhelming majority of the time. The grandmaster would see what I didn't see, or he'd make a correct evaluation where I made an incorrect one, or some such. However, on very rare occasion, he might see complications I missed, but might make a mistake in his calculations, or miss something in the complications, ending up choosing a move that was less than ideal. And possibly I, missing those complications, might, just by good fortune, choose the best move. In such an instance, should I say that I knew better than the grandmaster which move to make? No! I should say that just by chance, just by good fortune, the move I had chosen had turned out to be better than the move he had chosen. In such a case, I shouldn't say that I knew better than the grandmaster. Rather, I should say that I got lucky and happened to choose a better move than he chose. But you should still listen to the grandmaster, not me, the next time a position comes up and you want one of us to choose for you. And you certainly shouldn't take my word for it if I said ahead of time that I knew better than the grandmaster did what to do in that position. And I would be stupid to claim that I did. For Donald Trump, a real estate developer having no access during the campaign to daily intelligence briefings, his first intelligence briefing as a presidential candidate didn't occur until August 17th, 2016, Having no contact with circumstances on the ground, having no understanding of how ISIS operated or of the underlying motives of the members of ISIS, having no daily meetings with generals or other experts on the region. Even General Flynn didn't join the Trump campaign until February of 2016. Having no great understanding of military tactics, having no great understanding of the culture underlying ISIS. For him to have said that he knew better than the generals how to defeat ISIS was stupid, because it's stupid to think that you know better than the experts do. It's always stupid not to realize that the experts are the ones whose views in their field of expertise are the most reliable. They're not going to get everything right every single time. They'll make mistakes, but they'll make fewer than you will in their fields of expertise. And I should think we would all realize that. It would be stupid not to realize it. If, in fact, Donald Trump had in mind a way of proceeding against ISIS, which is itself doubtful, he didn't exactly lay out a detailed plan, and it's not as though he had never made a boastful claim that he hadn't thought through. And if, in fact, his way would have worked better than any way that the generals had thought of to defeat ISIS, then that would have been an indication of his good luck in selecting the best way of proceeding. It would not have been an indication of a New York real estate developer's advanced state of military knowledge. And he should have known that. It was stupid not to, if in fact he didn't. His plan, rather illogically, ultimately turned out to be, as revealed in a September 2016 speech, trusting the generals, who supposedly knew less than he did, to figure out how to do the job. If he was lying, it was a stupidly illogical lie. So that if he meant what he said, he was being stupid, and if he was lying, he was being stupid. Over and over again, he thinks of himself as knowing more than the experts. It's just stupid of him to believe that. I rather suspect that it's partly an instance of the Dunning-Kruger effect, although he might just be a highly overconfident guy anyway. The Dunning-Kruger effect is that a person who is very poorly informed, but who doesn't realize he's very poorly informed, let alone realize what it is he doesn't know, can be more confident in his assertions than someone who really is well informed. That often happens. The well informed generally have a good understanding that they don't know everything and could be mistaken. And where they're aware of uncertainty, they tend to indicate that in the way they speak. Or, for instance, in the case of the IPCC reports on climate change, in the way they write. But sometimes the poorly informed, who don't know what they don't know, are much more confident in their assertions and less likely to acknowledge sources of uncertainty. Donald Trump seems to be like that. He doesn't know what he doesn't know, and he makes his assertions with great confidence. And unfortunately, people have the psychological tendency to believe assertions made confidently more than they tend to believe assertions made only tentatively, which means that perversely, they can end up believing assertions made by the poorly informed instead of assertions made by the well informed. But Donald Trump's certitude in his pronouncements doesn't make him well informed, and it doesn't make him super intelligent. Trump's stupidity was on display again in Helsinki when he took Russian President Vladimir Putin's word over that of US intelligence agencies that Putin had interfered in the 2016 campaign. It's usually inaccurately said that the Russians interfered in the 2016 election, but it was really the campaign they interfered in. Of course, we know that Russia did interfere in the 2016 campaign and that it's interfering again. Even the Republican-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee has told us that, and in even stronger terms than those which the Mueller report used. And let us remember that the Mueller report was a report on Russian campaign interference. It might have wound up seeming as though it were a report on Trump and his minions, but no, it was a report on Russian campaign interference. Trump doesn't seem to understand that Russia has its own interests and that Vladimir Putin, a former intelligence agent, a spy, is not a universal truth teller. How stupid do you have to be not to realize that Vladimir Putin might be lying to you? I do have to add that it's conceivable that in private, Trump was harsh toward Putin. but that in public, he has pretended to believe Putin for reasons of his own, possibly even for good reasons. Maybe it helps save face for Putin. But conceivability isn't good reason for belief. And if it's conceivable that Trump really was hard on Putin in private, we shouldn't believe it on the basis of its being conceivable. And Trump hasn't generally behaved as someone who believed his intelligence agencies about Russian interference, or taken the sorts of actions someone who believed those agencies would have been expected to take, whether he allowed Putin to save face or not. Even Trump's most obvious lies betray his stupidity. Why lie about the size of his inauguration crowd relative to those of other presidents when it's easily checked and found to be false? Why lie about his electoral margin of victories being the greatest of any of the last 5 or 6 presidents when that's easily checked and found to be false? If you're going to lie, won't you make it a lie that won't be found out? Or at least not easily? And why continue lying about them even when they've been checked? Does he think no one's going to notice? The best one could say for him, or the worst, depending on your perspective, is that such lies aren't a result of stupidity, but are designed to test his base's loyalty to him, or to demonstrate that loyalty, or to get his base used to defending his lies as alternative facts, as though there could be such things, instead of valuing the truth. Of course, that would put on display a different character flaw. But the instance of Trumpian stupidity that I find most striking in the age of the coronavirus is his suggesting at a presidential press conference that medical experts were seriously investigating the possibility of injecting disinfectant into people in order to fight the coronavirus. Why was that stupid? Okay, first, when you're told that disinfectant is used to clean surfaces, is your first thought that, oh, maybe we should put it into human bodies then? No, of course not. You understand perfectly well that there's a difference between disinfecting surfaces and treating human bodies. It would probably not occur to you to wonder if its injection into human beings would help fight the infection in people. Disinfectant? Really? But all right, maybe it does occur to you. You're not a medical expert. You don't know that it won't work. Maybe you think it won't work, but you're not sure. So you go ahead and ask the medical experts. Can't hurt to ask, right? So you go ahead and ask them. Where? In the Oval Office, or at least behind closed doors. And when the medical experts look at you in horror and then tell you that no, that would not be a good idea, and in fact would be a very bad idea, and they explain why, what will you do? You'll drop the idea, that's what you'll do. What you won't do is go out in front of millions of people on a presidential press conference and make it sound as though the medical experts were seriously considering the idea. You'd know very well that many people would act on whatever you said because you were the president, and people listen to the president. And in fact, there was a rise in poisonings from, you guessed it, disinfectant after Trump's press conference, as well as a rise in phone calls to poison control centers about, you guessed it again, disinfectant. Trump's behavior was both stupid and irresponsible, where yours or mine wouldn't be. It's hard not to conclude that Trump isn't simply more stupid than you or I. The coronavirus pandemic has put Trump's flaws on full display. Who would think that doing fewer tests would result in there being fewer cases? Who would be so stupid as to think that? You? Me? I don't think so. But somehow, Trump's base gives him a pass when he says such manifestly stupid things. They don't care that he says them. They even revel in his saying stupid things because of how worked up they make his political opponents, like me. And his more thoughtful supporters defend him by filling in what he didn't actually say, namely that he really meant that administering fewer tests would reveal fewer cases. Why it would be important to reveal fewer cases rather than detecting actual cases, I don't know. I can't answer that. I do freely confess that it's often difficult to tell which Trumpian flaw or combination of flaws is on display at any given time. Is he well informed but lying, perhaps to manipulate his followers? Or is he poorly informed? Sometimes it's hard to tell. Is he being stupid or is he being manipulative? Is he being knowingly fraudulent? I know that's redundant, but I want to stress the mens rea. Or is he instead just stupid or poorly informed? Or is he being stubborn and refusing to accept that what he wants to be true isn't true because he's too narcissistic to believe that he could be wrong? Does his narcissism make him stupid? It can be hard to tell with Trump which character flaws are on display at any given time, or which combination of character flaws is on display. And don't ask me to even try to explain his changing the weather map by drawing on it with a Sharpie and pretending he hadn't made a mistake about the likely path of the hurricane shown on that map. But he doesn't talk or write like an intelligent person. And believe me, I've heard how intelligent people speak, and I've seen how intelligent people write. He talks and writes like a stupid person. Look at his tweets. Do they seem as though they come from a really intelligent person? Of course they don't. And you don't have to be a stable genius to see that they don't. Of course, his better educated or more intelligent supporters do indeed see that his tweets don't demonstrate much intelligence, and they're usually embarrassed by them, as he himself is not. They just make excuses for him. Remember when Trump decided to work on healthcare and at a certain point said, healthcare is complicated? Who knew? Well, everybody knew, that's who. Everybody who was paying any attention at all. Of course, healthcare is complicated. That's why the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, has so many moving parts. The Republicans have, of course, chipped away at those moving parts. I don't think it was ever the best theoretically possible healthcare system to adopt, although it was a big improvement over what we had. The Republicans have seemed hell-bent on making it work as badly as possible by chipping away at pieces of it that are really needed to make it work well. Anyway, everybody knew it was complicated. Trump announced that healthcare was complicated, not only as though he had just discovered that fact, but also as though he were announcing it to the rest of us poor benighted fools who would never have realized that healthcare was complicated had he not made that brilliant, stable genius announcement, enlightening all of us. Well, no. We knew damned well healthcare was complicated, and his not knowing until he suddenly discovered it shows that at the least he was poorly informed about it. At the least. But thinking that the rest of us didn't know, that was just plain stupid. And the funny thing is, stupidity isn't the worst flaw a president could have. Personally, I want the president of the United States to be smarter than I am and better informed than I am about the world and about how government works and about history and about economics and so on. And I want him to have some idea of what he doesn't know so that he'll know when to rely on his advisors. But even a stupid president could listen to the experts. You don't have to be a member of Mensa to listen to military experts or to the intelligence community or to scientific experts or to medical experts. Even a stupid president could be honest with the American people instead of telling them that the coronavirus is going to disappear like a miracle. Even a stupid president could genuinely care about the lives and well-being of the American people. Unlike Donald Trump, who was perfectly happy to consign tens of thousands of good Americans to needless deaths, maybe hundreds of thousands, as assessed by a new CDC report. Even a stupid president could surround himself with outstanding advisors and could act in the best interests of the American people. But when stupidity is combined with being poorly informed, with stubbornly denying facts, with being narcissistic, with a penchant for ignoring the experts who actually know what they're talking about, thinking that he, a very stable genius, knows better than they do in a staggering demonstration of the Dunning-Kruger effect. When stupidity is combined with manifestly not caring about the lives and well-being of other thinking, feeling beings, with the possible exception of his relatives and those who can help him transact deals, even if they're children, when it's combined with being fraudulent. Remember Trump University, as well as the Donald J. Trump Foundation? Frauds. Remember his underpaying of contractors after having promised them payment that he never made? Then stupidity becomes one flaw among others. But it also becomes a ruling flaw, a flaw partially determinative of action, because the narcissist thinks he knows better than everyone else, when in fact he does not. Having no awareness of his own weaknesses makes Donald Trump a menace. And one of those weaknesses is that he's stupid. Oh, you might say he's smart in that he's good at being manipulative. That, however, is not the kind of intelligence I have in mind when I say that he's stupid. I mean he's intellectually stupid. And I don't mean that he's simply not intellectually first rate. I mean that he's intellectually stupid. By all accounts, he doesn't read his presidential daily briefings, and by all accounts, he has a very short attention span, and he apparently gets a lot of his policy from factually unreliable TV commentators. And he's just not someone with whom it would make much sense to try to have an intelligent conversation. You can't stick a giant straw into the ground in order to take the oil with us, and you can't change the course of a hurricane with a Sharpie, and you can't wish away a pandemic. And you can't inject yourself with disinfectant in the hope of defeating the coronavirus. And yes, healthcare is complicated, and we all already knew that damn well. After talking about someone who clearly does not let reason and compassion be his guides, and after noting that there are indeed people for whom it is difficult to muster the usual amount of compassion, Donald J. Trump, I'll utter my usual sign off. As always, may reason and compassion be your guides.